Hello and welcome to Circle One. My name is John and I'm your host, and today I'm joined by two fantastic guests to discuss e-commerce. I'll pass it
Hey,
off to
everybody.
Chris.
Hey, I'm Chris. I'm a creative strategist, and to my right or up or down, wherever it is on the screen.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'm Andriy. I am an entrepreneur and I'm an e-commerce consultant and a general oddball. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Sounds like we might have some synthesis, some synergy there.
Yeah.
So guys, for all of you joining us on the live stream, thank you so much. We're going to get into a little bit more background. So the guests today will have a bit of an opportunity to tell you a bit more about themselves in a longer form fashion. But as is customary, a quick little introduction to the show. My name's John. I founded an organization called Auxesys. We're a systems integration firm. And basically that company was founded on a bet. And the bet was that we figured the future would include more people who were their own boss, more people who could work on what they want, from where they want, how they want, when they want, etc. So essentially, just a bet on increased autonomy and agency at the individual level, which is interesting considering some of the things that are going on. So many contrary positions, of course, but hey, that's our bet and we're playing it. And so, as part of that bet, what we do is we help clients with systems integration from a more holistic perspective. So yes, we help with technology and technology systems integration, especially for small businesses. But we expand our view of systems to include creative systems as well as operational systems. And so, obviously as we're growing, our clients are leaning on us, and we've been putting a foot forward on a few different media channels. And working with some fantastic folks to deliver service at the same time. So Chris, who joins us today, is actually a creative strategist who's helped us out, and he helped us, figure out how to brand the show a little bit. And when we discussed show titles, we were, thinking about some names and circled around the name Square One. And Auxesys, we have a thesis, and that thesis is something to the effect of our conceptions of the working world, profession, and career have to change, but there's still a lot of good things in our traditional conceptions. And so we liked the name Square One, but Square One, or to start at Square One, typically means to take a project, scrap it, and restart it from scratch. And at Auxesys, we thought, well, that's not quite right. There's a lot of good things there in our traditional conceptions of working life. And so maybe we don't have to start at Square One. Maybe we can just reimagine the shape. Circle One. Welcome. All right, now that we're done with the cheese, we will pass it off. And I'll start with Chris. And Chris, if you wouldn't mind to give the audience, he's a returning guest, so it's going to be a bit of a refresher for some of you, but maybe a brief introduction to yourself, your background, and your day-to-day.
Yeah, I'm Chris. I am, like I said before, creative strategist. I work for a big tech company in the creative department and help produce marketing and brand campaigns nationally and locally and at a variety of scales, and that's really fun. Lots of digital executions, generally digital first. And I've had some freelance and previous jobs where I dealt a lot with e-commerce, and right now I kind of work for sort of a pseudo e-commerce brand, I would say, and but dealt with a lot of e-commerce on a smaller scale and with more mom and pop shops trying to get online, and that was really interesting. So I'm hoping to be able to lend a little bit of insights to this chat.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask you. I didn't want to make the claim that your employer was an e-commerce firm, but it does seem like maybe they are.
Call them an aggregator.
I would say they're an e-commerce firm. Yeah. Awesome. Their sales channel happens mostly online, so yeah, I'd say they're omni-channel, if you want to call it that. I think they're really interesting twist.
It might be worthwhile just to mention you'll hear us talk about brands and employers and stuff in this manner a lot on the show at Circle One. And there's a few things at play here. We're here to discuss big picture items, and so the 24-hour news cycle and very specific items with regards to specific firms and such we might reference some specific firms, but our hope is to bring ourselves, our full selves to the table. And so you'll hear us maybe reference our employers and such. And, our intention is not to really speak about too many people in too specific of a manner. So I guess there's a little bit of insight there. And with that in mind, we'll pass it to Andriy, who probably will want to speak about his employer in a very specific manner because he is self-employed as of recently.
Yeah. Thanks, John. As I mentioned before, I'm an entrepreneur. I recently started a business focusing on e-commerce specifically. I worked for a big player in the e-commerce space for the last over a year, and I'm really excited about the industry. I think it can do a lot of good for small businesses. And so I founded Auxesys in mid-March, I think. I think we technically launched beginning of April. And we do e-commerce consulting, we do e-commerce management and strategy, anything from specifically focusing on Shopify, and we do anything from website setup to sales increases and website optimization and design. So that's kind of the spiel of it. But it is, it's a very interesting space, and there's a lot of really interesting stuff happening there, especially given sort of the situation we find ourselves now. And
Awesome. Well, I mentioned to Chris kind of before we were jumping into the conversation here that if it's all right with you, I think I'm very curious to learn a little bit more about your business and how it's going and the services you offer, and I'm sure Chris is as well. Do you mind if we pepper you with a few questions and try and learn a little bit more?
Yeah, shoot.
Excellent. I guess I'm curious about things from a local perspective to begin with, and I recall that when you first launched your business and your services, that you had a little bit of a special offer. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that and your experience there.
Yeah. It was an interesting approach because it was actually. So what I ended up launching with is I launched a limited time offer where when we started the company, we would offer free e-commerce setups for businesses that really needed it. And this was like mid-March. So a lot of people are, honestly, I was noticing a lot of local businesses scramble to get an e-commerce experience up and running. And it was interesting to see just a whole bunch of like either big Google Forms pop up on people's website, we ask for an e-transfer at the end of it. It was like, guys, this doesn't have to be that complicated. And there are platforms that do this really well. And obviously, Shopify is a big one and a fantastic platform specifically for that, to get something up like that up and running. So I offered it to my personal network, and the word spread. So we did 11 projects in total.
Wow.
And it's
I knew it was up there.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good busy time to start off with, and which actually provided a very nice, surprisingly smooth launch for a business that was launching in a very tricky and kind of strange time. So and the biggest thing that I found talking to business owners is like a lot of people had concerns. A lot of people had, okay, well, how's this going to work? I got so many questions. They know nothing about selling online. And honestly, most of my work consisted of like the most impactful bit of, I did set up like just basically e-commerce basics for them with Shopify. But I think the most important bit was just telling them that's like, hey, this is just like your regular business. You still have to basically, the basics are still there. You still need customers, you need products, and you need to sell it on a profitable level. And that's all that is. It's no need to overcomplicate anything. So that's been interesting. Yeah.
Okay. I got a follow-up question, if that's all right. I've heard you mention a few things. Today you mentioned it doesn't have to be that complicated. Andriy's a recurring guest on the show, hopefully, and that continues. But the last time you were on the show, we touched upon some of your experiences in e-commerce, and you made a comment, something to the effect of, the modern small business or even micro business has access to a supply chain that would have made Amazon of 10 years ago jealous. And there's something that you explained to me over a casual beer, I think, before any of the the current demand for e-commerce kind of sprung into being, and that was with regards to how integratable every component of setting up a supply chain is. And maybe you can take that as an open-ended question and just describe for our viewers at home, like, why that's the case, how this giant kind of behemoth, it seems like, enables like a standalone small entrepreneur or micro business to basically just plug in or turn on a switch and have access to this infrastructure.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. And the thing is, so it can seem very complex looking from the outside in, because you can think, oh, I need a website and I don't have any design skills, or I don't know, is it going to plug into my POS? Is it going to work with this? Can it work with, how am I going to do my accounting? How can I charge people? How can I charge their credit cards? Like a lot of really basic business questions. And like you said, some platforms are set up specifically for that, and I'm not over exaggerating. Like Shopify allows you to set up a platform with all the basics in the first, literally in 3-4 hours. You could have technically a product up online and sell your first product, and then these platforms, and I think Shopify particularly, and I will be praising Shopify. I'll be very honest about that. A lot, because obviously that's a horse that I've bet on, but a lot of people have, and I think some maybe overzealously, some people, and I think mostly for good reasons. It's the second biggest e-commerce platform now after Amazon, and it's a fantastic platform because it allows for third-party integration and people like me to allow to easily access stores and help basically just plug and play. I send you an email, or give me access, and I can start working on your on your site. The level of permissions is easy to integrate. The number of tools that you can get for sort of software as a service pricing, $10, $20, $30 a month is, I think Shopify has over 2,000. It's got over 2,000 apps that you can download that provide the specific functionality, but also I think it has over 60,000 agencies that work specifically on Shopify. So it's a fantastic tool, and again, all of these things, it's designed to be a network, like the same way your app store on your phone is designed to give all the app creators as much leverage as they can to make the most for you as a user, and in this case, for you as a business owner. Yeah.
Very cool, very cool, and it's interesting to keep learning more and more about Shopify, and obviously seeing them in the news. And I'm hoping maybe a couple things that we can cover off during today's conversation. I'd like to speak, about functional e-commerce, and so just maybe pull on some of the threads that you laid out there, Andriy. And then obviously Chris comes to the conversation with, significant experience in digital selling experiences, customer experience, and brand voice and creative strategy. So maybe I'll turn it over to Chris and just ask him if he has any functional questions for you coming from his perspective. Maybe if there's anything you're curious about. There's definitely a few things I'm curious about, but Chris?
I mean, personally, my biggest question is actually like the pay model, specifically what you were saying about your 11 clients right at the beginning there. I've heard some people in businesses like yourself, like doing the e-commerce agency, setting up deals where they're taking a cut of sales, or it seems to me, I don't know, there's similar things in the creative side of things where you get these these people who have juiced the system essentially, and they feel like that. And so I'm wondering, because I'm just curious, how did that work with those first clients there? You're giving them the setup for free. How do you recoup your costs, and how do you,
I'll be honest, I looked at it primarily as a promotional tool, as just a way to build a portfolio, and just build a couple of trust symbols. And so I wasn't necessarily looking at payoff or monetizing that right off the bat. But Shopify, I'll be upfront, Shopify does have affiliate tools where if you set up someone's Shopify, so for example, again, fantastic partner support. So as I'm setting up someone's Shopify page, and they go on to pay the monthly fees, they have a 10% referral fee, for example. It's negotiable, and there's different rates and different, if you install a theme, if you create an app, if you provide service, there's different levels of partner payoffs that Shopify provides. Yeah.
And that's what seems to be really interesting about Shop. Like you were saying, it is a network, and a Shopify partner versus, let's say, like, I think from the outside looking in, it looks, let's say like Shopify partner and Google partner. I think those are two very, very, very different things, right? A Google partner, you take a couple courses, that's it. Shopify has understood that there's a ton of people like you that are out there trying to monetize in different ways. And I think actually the percentage of sales one I find interesting, because it seems a little predatory, like as a service provider, to say that, but realistically, it can be some of the easiest way for a brand to do it. You just include that into their margin.
That's, and if I'm honest, like, I think, yeah, the thing is, the price you pay as the end user is the same. And you understand implicitly, obviously, that it's like, maybe if they didn't allocate for a 10% referral fee, maybe my price as a monthly fee would have been lower. But honestly, I'm not, me personally, and I don't think a lot of partners, it's not, once you start looking at agency work and service work specifically for Shopify, like honestly, the monthly fees are not incredible. Like, and you're not looking at revenue percentages. You're talking about just subscription payments. So $30 a month, $70 a month, $150 a month. If you're receiving $15 a month for setting somebody on Shopify, that's not your revenue stream. It's never the primary incentive, and it was never for me. Because honestly, at that point, it's a volume play. It's like, well, how many stores can I create? And at that point, obviously quality suffers. So the primary source is always going to be it's billable hours, it's consultancy, it's actually development work. And Shopify is actually, as far as, and this is why I'm a big fan of the platform, profit margins and percentage of revenue is generally very well preserved with the maker, with the producer, with the entrepreneur. Shopify, like, if you really wanted to push it with all of the potential add-ons, like some apps take percentage of sales. So for example, if you want to do a subscription model, 1% subscription on recurring orders fee for the subscription app is a common thing. So you can, if you really wanted to, you can get your fees, your revenue share with Shopify as a platform and your service providers up to 5% if you're really passionate about paying, like, about really giving away your profit margins. But in reality, Shopify charges 2.9%, which is basically the same as a credit card processor. And they do make money, a lot of their money, obviously, on the spread between what they negotiate with the credit card processors through Stripe and their payment systems, blah, 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 and what they pass on to the user. But, so that's kind of it. Yeah.
Well, it's very interesting to get a little of a peek under the hood in terms of how that business model works. And I love the idea of learning more about Shopify. I think for the customer, from the customer's perspective, being, a business hoping to get into e-commerce, for example, I'm really curious about the local experience, the micro business experience in particular. And I'm, I guess, curious about two things. One, from a ground level, functionally speaking, if somebody were to engage with you, and I'll toot your horn on the show, it sounds like what Chris is getting at is there's gray hat or black hat Shopify consultants who might try and be gougey with pricing and set up some weird structure.
Very good way to put it, yeah.
Yes. And from what it sounds like on Andriy's side, it sounds like you're a white hat Shopify consultant, and the fact that you rolled out that program and there wasn't even a discussion, it sounds like, of some type of clawback or percentage or whatever, to get your name out there, to build those trust symbols and get some work under your belt.
It was funny because everybody was expecting, it's like, well, hold on, what do I pay you?
Yeah.
It was like, I'm going to do this. Hey, here's the amount of work I'll do for you for free. And then if you love the work, you'll come back as a paying customer anyhow. So, and that was generally the discussion.
Good way to, I think, approach a market in a time like this. And so now I think it sounds like you ran that until April 17th, if I'm correct.
Yeah, the initial offer was till April 17th, and then there was an extended demand, so we extended it to May 1st, and then that's basically where we had it cut off. Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Full month, yeah.
Well, it sounds like people on the show who might be watching probably have a decent idea of how you would approach fees or billing structure. So I think we'll leave the specifics of that off the table. But I am curious about what an engagement or approaching an engagement with you might look like. And so let's imagine that I ran a manufacturing play in Winnipeg. It was a small thing. I manufactured, I don't know, boutique plates and home decorations or something, and I wanted to get into the platform and sell locally first, and I didn't want to bite off more than I could chew. And I came to you. Can you walk us through, just at a basic level, like what the steps would be for somebody like me? And let's imagine I'm a completely traditional seller, and all of a sudden I'm curious about speaking with you and what it might take to just see what selling my wares online might look like.
Yeah. The typical process is always trying to figure out what products do you want to sell online, and what products will work with your existing customers. And if you're so some people look at e-commerce as just like here's it's a nice to have, it's never a must have. I think over the last little bit, people have started to see the importance of building a revenue channel, like diversifying their revenue channel through there, and through your website, and leveraging that really well. You and I talked about this, and it was so POS sales, and it was a stat that was pulled out from a recent quarterly report. Q1 sales, in-store brick and mortar POS sales, went down 71% in like the month of like it was mid-March till late April, and merchants who had e-commerce sales channels ready to go made up for 94% of those lost sales. So in reality, people who had channels and the customers were ready, and they knew that the website was running, and they knew that they could purchase online, overall they reduced the sales from 70% to 65%. So they saved 65% of lost sales. And obviously that requires not just having it work well, but having just a robust experience and making sure that your customers are trained for that already. And it seems like in really uncertain times, it's a good thing to have, obviously just to cover your ass, pardon my French. But also,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. But also just making sure that even if your doors are open and you're working at full capacity and everything is fine and everything is humming along, that is still a very essential revenue leg for you, because those customers are not going to go away. And if you provide them a good experience, they will come back, and they will come back and purchase. And now, especially locally too, because some people, and we talked a little bit about this this morning when we were on a call. It was like e-commerce used to be a global thing. It's like, I'm producing in Winnipeg. I can now sell, if anybody in the world can see my website, so I can sell to anybody, I can reach anybody. But now we're seeing this new wave, and this is not my idea. This is an idea from Jay Myers from Bold Commerce. That's the one I've heard him evangelize this idea. And he's talking about e-commerce 2.0, where, yes, the global reach was awesome, and we've built out amazing supply channels to allow you to sell anywhere. But now so many people are resorting to e-commerce and checking your website and checking your brand name on Google and making sure that they can find you. There's enough local demand to make that a sustainable sales channel. There's enough.
Well, I think it's also, I was just going to say, it's also allowing people, like the whole sentiment of supporting local and all that stuff is all well and good, but until this e-commerce boom where all of these smaller, littler brands are getting onto e-commerce and getting their products available, it was so hard to do as a consumer, to shop consciously and to support your local communities and all that stuff. And now it's just so easy.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, yeah.
So if I could jump in there for a minute, I'm trying to think from maybe your
I don't think I
customers.
answered your question.
Yeah, that's okay. But I think you set the table nicely for it, right? It was needed. So, thinking about everything that you just said, and maybe, if somebody was the person who I'm trying to imagine being, they might have had to wrap their heads around many of the things that you're saying, right? Like the infrastructure, that this can happen, that can plug and play, that local e-commerce, or this e-commerce 2.0 is actually a thing, and it is happening. And so now that the table's set, let's imagine I'm a local artisan. I manufacture plates and bowls, and they're like highly boutique, bespoke, custom items. And traditionally, I've sold to locals my entire life. And I'm not even interested in maybe a global marketplace. But all of a sudden, something happens, and, people aren't coming to my studio to look through my inventory anymore. Maybe you can walk us through what that might look like. From your perspective, if I'm curious and I have no idea. So if there's like a 5-step thing. So let's imagine, I've got 5 different items that I manufacture basically, right? They're super high quality, and I know what I want to try and sell and offer my clients or customers online. What do I do next?
Yeah. Okay, so to make it very, very simple and straightforward, 3 things. Basically, e-commerce runs on 3 things. What happens to get your customers to your website, which is like the traditional marketing, your Instagram channel. You wait, and for a lot of new businesses, this starts with your personal network. People you can say, hey, here's my link. I've built a store. Here's my link. Go check it out. So ways of getting people to your website, what happens on your website. And that basically comes with setting up your site, making sure that you have products, the basic fundamentals of products, photography, and a website that's easy to navigate, where it's easy to find products on, and easy to see what the products are and read about them. Because product descriptions are essentially, you should know as a business owner, of course, because that's your bread and butter. It shouldn't be a difficult thing for you to do. For photography, you might need to hire a professional photographer to take a couple of photos. But I've seen a couple of DIY sort of customers that make the most with sort of the home setup, home studio they can manage, and they put a little bit of effort, take photos of their products, and then a customer sees the product on the website, looks at the images, reads the description, likes the price, see the shipping information, local delivery and pickup options, and they leave their credit card info. You have a customer, you get an email as a business owner, and this is basically everything that happens off of this is the order fulfillment. And this is
okay. I'm not so much worried about that. If I'm to put myself in that shoes, I guess I'm worried about. I know I want e-commerce.
Yeah.
I believe that you can help me. We have a meeting.
Yeah.
And I decide that you're my guy. What's the first thing that you ask me for?
Brand assets.
Okay, so I give you my logo, a bunch of files. I think you've mentioned in the past I got to get you a spreadsheet that has my product inventory on it.
Yeah, that's another thing that I would love to help people with, because some people are, if you're importing a complex, large collection of products, it's good to just do it all in one go, and some platforms are easier to do it than others. But I'd say starting with a couple of key items, not necessarily maybe uploading the 150 products. But we would start off with, if we decide, okay, let's do it. We decide what are the top products you want to focus on first, because like I was saying, the product content and the photography is obviously you have a million, you can have 100 or say 5 products you want to sell, leveraging those 5, your biggest sellers first, to make sure that you kind of have a foot in the door, you have an idea, you generate some early revenues to start off with. Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like you're telling me I got to get you a spreadsheet with all my items, photos of my products, my logos and my brand assets. Then I give that all to you.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
Then I work on making sure that the design language and the website layout makes sense. The products are easy to find on your website, and just making sure that everything, basically that your e-commerce site is easy to navigate and easy to check out with. And then make sure that basically, we do a scope. We'd figure out exactly what you need, what other pieces you're missing.
Okay. And then would you help me integrate it with like my own banking and stuff for payment, or how does that work?
So typically, for that, I'd say the process is fairly straightforward. I'd leave that to you, and I wouldn't want, because again, the process is super straightforward. And Shopify does a good job of doing that. So I'd leave that to you, like setting up your shipping info. So registering for Canada Post or UPS, it's as simple as getting a couple of business pieces of information to them. Everything plugs into your platform. If you wanted additional support and that kind of stuff, obviously, happy to help.
Awesome. So,
Yep,
go ahead, Chris.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say it's interesting that you say just like isolate 5 items, because I think starting small with e-commerce is such a key thing, because what can really trip up some of these small first-time brands and companies is the fulfillment side. I know we don't want to get too deep into fulfillment, but you have to practice it as a business. Like, it takes practice to figure out how you're going to set it up in your store, how you're going to manage the inventory and separate it, how you're going to take the sold inventory off the floor. Like, anything like that matters so much. And yeah, it takes practice. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's why a lot of people are resorting to 3PL, like third-party logistics and drop shipping, okay? Because obviously Amazon has built a global empire on this. Shopify is sort of sticking their nose in there. They've acquired a couple of drop shipping companies, and they're doing plug and play drop shipping as well now, in early stages, nothing too crazy, but it's logistics, like, you have to be good at them.
And are you finding any potential or current clients, or hearing about anyone that's essentially using drop shipping and all of that fulfillment integration to effectively just build like curated stores and curated e-commerce experiences that rely on completely no warehouse inventory and are just like you're just managing the store of somebody else's inventory?
You know what? I haven't seen too many of those as much as we've been seeing with Amazon, because obviously Amazon's got the difficult thing is, and this is why Shopify is great for like business to consumer, or business to consumer direct, as a direct sales channel, I should say, because it gives you the flexibility of displaying your brand, getting your brand message across, lifestyle photography, making sure that you have a lot of control over what your website says. And I feel like that's probably where a lot of those companies that would set up just a drop shipping, hey, we're going to pick 5 really high selling products, we're going to optimize their e-commerce site, and we're just going to fingers crossed that we get eyeballs on it. I think most of that comes from marketing, and it's like, if you're not passionate about the brand or passionate about the product, if you're just there to sell sell face masks, good luck, right? Because
I had a few years back, I had a friend this was around just before pot legalization, and I had a friend they were starting to dip their toes into a relationship with a product distributor, right? So he imported a bunch of products, warehoused them, sent them out to retailers, brick and mortar. And this distributor wanted to take his entire product inventory, create like 6 lifestyle brands that were mostly living on social, then go and take his whole inventory and be like, okay, this fits with this brand and this fits with this brand, and then curate these very smaller catalogs and make this like giant e-commerce conglomerate, all running out of one warehouse. And I thought it's genius, and nobody needs to know. I mean, you're seeing some of those things with like ghost kitchens on food delivery apps. It's a similar concept, right? Yeah. But it's, you don't have to inventory everything.
Yeah.
Can you, just that word, can you tell us a little bit more about the ghost kitchen stuff?
That's
people watching might be curious.
Fascinating business case.
Yeah, ghost kitchens are interesting. So, same thing as the warehouse concept. I own a kitchen. And instead of being like, I guess what's the really Cheesecake Factory, right? They're notorious for having like a 50-page menu or something like that. Mm-hmm. We all know the dining experiences are changing. Social media is kind of like really tribalizing and dividing people into their subsets. So basically, a ghost kitchen means that you can
have a kitchen that can cook anything, and you could potentially have a 50-page menu, but instead you're going to launch now, like, let's say, like a taco brand that only does tacos. You're going to do a burger chain. You're going to do all these things, and all each one of these requires is a menu items, and maybe like 5, because they're so specific. And a quick brand, and because the aggregators don't even like skip the dishes, Uber Eats, all that stuff, they don't allow a lot of space for branding to begin with. You need like a clip art logo and 2 photos of food, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And so you can have one kitchen that stays busy all day, no front of house, no nothing, and be delivering under an umbrella of brands. And to your kitchen staff, realistically, you have all that stuff prepped at the beginning of the day. That would be like working in any restaurant with a variety of foods that they serve, right? So
okay. So my mind goes to the extreme, and I wonder what's the current state of things, like how realistic is this? So if I were like an extreme thinker and I wanted to like build a ghost kitchen business, could I buy some big warehouse space,
absolutely,
sign on a bunch of restaurant partners, and cook like 15 restaurants' food out of my warehouse? Like,
so the biggest roadblocks that you're going to have if you do that, absolutely you can. Calgary has a really big network of ghost kitchens. The hard thing is understanding how big these kitchens really are, because a ghost kitchen network could be a bunch of small little kitchens,
yeah,
or like it could be 3 kitchens serving 10 menus, or it could be 1 kitchen serving 5, 6 menus. It's hard to say. But the biggest problem is going to be because all of these aggregators run on location-based zones. So I can only, as a customer, order from someone that's like 20 minutes away from me. Any further than that, I can't really order from. So if you wanted a big warehouse kitchen, you'd better find one. You'd have a hard time finding one that's zoned for that kind of thing in a place with enough population density that it makes sense, and you can deliver all of that food to all of those customers in that area. Because if you go to a traditional industrial area, there's no customers in that area. So that's going to be a bit, so that's a roadblock. So it really all, I guess, depends on your ability to find real estate and to manage these sub brands.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I can't help but think about the worker level too. What it must be like to work in a ghost kitchen with like 100 other cooks like beside you. Like
yeah. I mean, it depends on the size, but even locally, like we have Stella's. Stella's operates, I believe, a tertiary kitchen where they supply a lot of their actual own stores that have their own kitchens with some extra stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Interesting.
Sorry, you were saying, Andriy?
Yeah, I'd be also curious because obviously the restaurant business is notorious for paper thin profit margins, and I'm thinking it's like how like either cutthroat or just like how tight must that business need to run to really like to be able to resell someone else's work with an added margin. I'm thinking, and also obviously knowing the network fees, and it's like okay, you really have to have everything lined up really well.
I would imagine that once you cut out the entire front end of that business, like I can't speak really to the financial part of it, but I would imagine that once you completely cut out the front end of that business, it would operate on a similar scheme to a traditional e-commerce that doesn't have a brick and mortar, right? Like I think the costs and the margins would be kind of similar. Like let's say that they have a big Shopify partner that's and lots of app integration, so they're losing their margins in that way, right? And then you add Facebook ads and a bunch of things bringing people to you. Like essentially the aggregator fees that like these profit margins that they're giving away or giving up to Ubers and the Skips of the worlds. A portion of that you could sort of say for an e-commerce brand would be your Facebook marketing tools, right? Not all of it, but a good portion of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, and that's typically actually how I explain this thing to clients as well, because some people look at because the end goal of trying to sell online, or the main step of trying to sell online, is actually getting people to your site.
Yeah.
Like building an easy to convert website is straightforward, but it's like, how do I get eyeballs on it? And some people, I had a couple of friends and be like, yo, this restaurant doesn't do, they don't do, like they should do e-commerce. I was like, well, there are a lot of networks and platforms that already drive targeted audiences to these things. For them to start off and start building SEO traction and start
Exactly.
building brand awareness is tough. And that's basically what you pay for going onto an Amazon or going onto a DoorDash or Skip the Dishes, is like you're paying that percentage for having traffic to your storefront.
Yeah.
And if you could take it and do it independently. And sure, you'd have the fatter profit margin up front, but you have to pay that to either Google ads or Facebook ads, or just spend more time on regular marketing, getting content onto Instagram and Facebook and the rest of it.
Awesome.
So, sorry, I just have one more quick question. Is Shopify working to essentially create, to use other like sometimes you'll see on like a lifestyle website like Uncrate. I don't know if you guys know uncrate.com. It's basically a website where they just it's just a bunch of product reviews, and some of them are little pocket knives that you can buy and you and I can afford. Some of them are multi-million-dollar mansions that no one could afford, but they have a vast array of products, and they used to be more product review oriented. Now it's a function for e-commerce, right? But it's never more than just a link back to the website of the company that makes this product. I'm wondering if Shopify is building tools now, or some of these app developers that are allowing these more like blog style websites to effectively become aggregators of e-commerce products from multiple different brands.
Andriy, you'd probably be
so
I don't know if I can answer that question.
It's an interesting phenomenon, because you're starting to see, so for example, like recently Facebook announced that they're redoing their Facebook shop, and this is something we've seen on Instagram already. Direct purchasing experiences where I can just click on the post, or if it's your own blog or website, you already have traffic there. Well, I redirect it back to your store and then make a purchase. You can just directly link to a checkout, essentially, and that is what Shopify and a lot of other big commerce and WooCommerce, all of these e-commerce giants are trying to build, is to get their checkout in as many accessible places and as easily as you can. So the way sort of Instagram, you might have seen like, hey, click here for this exact product, and Instagram marketing done. You click on the product. Instagram, from within the app, from within your blog, you can take a look at exactly the product description, the shipping costs, the cost of the product, the dimensions, and then you just click checkout and you have a secure checkout that's powered by Shopify. It goes back to your Shopify backend, tells you what the order is. You can print the shipping label and get it fulfilled. And yeah, this is like the next thing. So Facebook is relaunching their shopping experience. I think obviously it's a demographic thing. So Instagram's got its own demographic. Facebook's got its demographic. I can only imagine that LinkedIn is probably thinking about something like this. I haven't really seen direct converting tools on there, but maybe I just didn't look hard enough. So
it'd be interesting to see. I think they'd probably want to be a little bit more careful into their foray there, given the use case of their product. So
yeah.
So I was just hoping to transition a little bit. We've been talking quite a bit about, the functional implications of e-commerce and kind of a ground up inquiry, given that we've got a specialist here in the room with us but, to try and transition into this other topic that we were hoping to discuss, I've been thinking a lot about what it felt like as a kid to get a new bike. And I don't know about you guys if you remember this experience. I remember having a bike, and maybe I owned it for 2 years or sometimes longer, and riding that bike and getting like so comfortable on that bike. And then I would get a new bike, and for like a week or 2 weeks, it was like the weirdest feeling, right? And so I've been using this metaphor quite a bit in my own business, as our business is changing rapidly. We're swapping out bikes really quick. And my clients' businesses are changing their businesses really rapidly. We're talking, it sounds a lot about systematization. The food industry and the fast food industry especially has been highly influential in the way that we think about things here at Auxesys, being representative of systems. And then obviously the way that, the restaurant industry is further systematizing and further trying to adjust their business model, optimize, seek out revenues, give themselves room while also providing customers with a way to find them. Where am I going with all of this? I think where I'm going with all this is the logical, I think, kind of bike for, maybe somebody at the ground level to switch to. So maybe we use that example I gave previously of like a local artisan or somebody, right? It's like, they start at the ground level, they rode this bike for 20 years, and it's like, and then all of a sudden there's this new bike that they need to get comfortable on, and maybe that's the e-commerce bike. And then, Andriy, what you were mentioning about, driving traffic to the site and like actually finding a way to resonate with a customer base or even pique interest with a group of consumers, that to me seems like a third bike. Like, and you're just starting to get comfortable on this one new one, and all of a sudden somebody says like, here's a third one, get comfortable on this one. And so to transition into this, I guess, final topic from a little bit of a brand perspective, I think the topic is something like online experience as a channel to deliver brand. And, how can somebody who maybe is that person that I described transition from, obviously you need to use it as a tool to feel relevant and to keep your business running at first, but then how can you transition into, using that e-commerce platform or this e-commerce capabilities as a way to, build a brand, craft your own voice, and deliver great brand experiences to your clientele. And maybe I'll turn this one over to Chris to start us off on and see where we go. Yeah. Chris?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one for me. It's basically the foundation of digital marketing, if you're talking about it, right? Drive somebody to a website, make an online purchase. Yeah. Driving somebody virtually to a brick and mortar purchase is pretty darn difficult. And then to track and make sure that you've actually done that, even more difficult. It is possible, but it's pretty hard. So when it comes to this, I think that it really comes like beyond, like if we're thinking beyond just your homepage and your About Us page and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, we were looking at an example just before the show of a brand that really likes to have fun. Their product descriptions are hilarious. It's very product forward. There aren't like big header images and then little product carousels. It's very like product is front and center. But it's so like unapologetically this brand. And I mean, not every company is going to have strong brand voice like that, or even have a reason to have that. So there are other different ways. And I think really what it comes down to is for me, it's education, building educational fact-based experiences. And what that usually looks like is a landing page. That way, you can drive people with content as well as products from social media. So you can have a blog post on social media that actually, or you could have something that looks like a blog post, is it as just as informational, but in the way you've built your page, you have carousels. So after the section where you talk about like, oh, this is like, for instance, I'll give the example of bike shops because we're talking about new bikes. That's who I used to work for. And there's a lot to know with bikes, right? And so I would build a lot of landing pages that were, here's how you pick the right tires for winter, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to be doing winter riding. And, it's great information on the page. It shows a variety of products. It shows tools to help you install them. And so you're using these products to help guide the customer through a journey of information. And I think that's really great. And the more specific that information you may like, it kind of gets down to like your click-through rate may be lower, but your conversion rate of that click-through rate may be higher. Because you're getting far more specific. And if somebody really actually wants to know that, then they're that much more likely to purchase those products. And then, of course, if you can latch on that content the same way you would build a really good blog post to latch it on to other relevant parts of the internet, hyperlinking and all that stuff, you're just bringing people from so many avenues into an experience rather than your homepage. And I think that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those things don't have to last long. You can put one up for a sale, you can put one up for a month for a campaign, and then you take it down and you can keep rebuilding them. And as you do that, your audience also starts to get a little bit more like lenient, I would say. Like they're like, oh, this is a thing that they threw up. They're always changing things up. I'm not super concerned that the layout isn't done in proper CSS or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, customers don't think that way. The particular ones do.
I wonder if you could help us, Chris, and the audience maybe at home to understand something. And this has been interesting for me to see in the course of the last 15 years of digital marketing, I guess. Like, the concept of the landing page has changed quite a bit, all the way from, I guess when I first started playing with the internet, and I won't date myself with how long ago, but I think I was 10 or so. And the idea of a landing page was like the first page that you landed on from clicking on it, usually in a search function. Back then, I think Google wasn't even a thing. It was Lycos and Alta Vista, and it was like the landing page was the page you landed on, whatever that may be from wherever you went. And then fast forward, again, I won't say how many years, to today, and you use this term landing page, and I think it might be helpful or beneficial just in very plain terms to talk about what we mean when we're talking about a landing page, as opposed to, and I think this is currently how people are in digital marketing are discussing the landing page, as opposed to just a page on your website that people land on. And so maybe you can help walk us through maybe like just very basically what some of the differences between a page on your website and a landing page might be.
Sure. So there is a little bit of bleed over, but we'll keep it simple here. So a landing page is basically just a blank canvas. Realistically, it's a URL that's tied to your website. You're always going to want to build a way in your landing page for your customer to get back into your website if it's not completely obvious. But it's essentially a digital blank canvas, in the same way that marketing emails are built, in the same way that a lot of the easy website builders and stuff like that are doing things now. You can get really crazy with them, but they're generally just compartmentalized pages that are connected to your website that can sit outside, and you typically drive users right towards them with the intent of them going back to your website to discover more, rather than the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If that makes sense. So they can house content, they can house tools, they can house videos, they can just be a curation of products. Generally, they look similar to a lot of the marketing emails that you get in your inbox from brands these days.
Yeah. And I think maybe we're seeing more and more often as well, like not even a desire for a landing page to drive people back to a website. Like just a landing page that's focused on one very specific user action, and that's it. And so it's like 4 or 5 rows of information, educational, brand-based, whatever type copy and content. And then it's basically like one conversion point, and not even a menu for your website, not even, too much of a footer or anything linking back to other places,
Exactly.
I think there's kind of a gamut between those and some of the stuff that I'm seeing in the industry right now. But I think so that the idea of the landing page helps. And then where are we going with this one? So, you're talking about education, and you talk about education because do you think it's difficult, or is it a problem? Are people struggling with it? I think I'm trying to say I struggle with it, right? Like, how do I educate my prospects and my customers using some of these tools that are available to us today?
Yeah. Well, I think it really comes down to what are the types of content that you like to engage with. Generally, fact-based content. Like even if you're just talking like, how does a brand communicate with its customers? Facts help so much. You can massage facts and you can put them in nice boxes and you can brand them. But at the end of the day, people love new information and directed and concise new information. So, it can be humor, it can be entertainment value, it can be educational. And generally, I think when brands educate or empathize, that's when they see the best results, usually.
Yeah. One of the better things that I've heard regarding content marketing creation is like apparently native case studies and research studies. So, for example, hey, we did our own research and we polled, or we looked at X number of companies, or we did this. That native research is the one that's linked the most and gets the most perennial sort of return and has the best shelf life. And you can't have, the traditional marketing, hey, here's a list of things that you can do on your website. here are 13 conversion rate optimizations. And that could be cool, and that could be topical for the current sort of standards of, hey, here's how Google SEO works and so on and so forth. But if you're native and what's the word I'm looking for? Original research that you've done on as a firm, and here's the research that we're basically publishing. That typically does better than most.
You see that a lot in like white paper. Actually, this is an interesting thing. Like, are knowledge-based products still considered e-commerce? Because you see white papers, case studies, like, oh, get access to the top 10 case studies. Like, that's still an e-commerce product. So how does that work curating a store when your client doesn't have a physical product to show? Do you make mock-ups of books with covers, or like how? Like, what's...
I see that a lot. I see tons of that. Just to jump in here for a second, we do help out quite a bit with digital marketing over here at Auxesys, and one of my favorite things about digital marketing is that as you train this system, this global behemoth of the internet, and you do train it with your behavior, it creates this positive feedback loop of like sending you back things that you're interested in. And so I love researching like different digital marketing tactics and stuff like that for, you know, potential application and client projects, and then seeing just like the plethora of all this other stuff that comes in that's applicable. So tons of mocked up book covers for white papers and ebooks and all that type of stuff. You know, I think maybe a lot of that stuff is getting towards the guru side of things, but still there's a lot of really good stuff there. In terms of like mocking up your products and, you know, selling webinars and selling coaching and doing all those types of things. But I guess where I was going with that is, I think the bigger topic item there is like, I love the way that digital marketing works, and I hear a lot of people speak about it disparagingly, but frankly, it helps me solve problem after problem after problem in my business. And really the way that business is occurring these days is just like surmounting problem after problem in a lot of situations. And the way it usually goes for me is like, I have this problem. I need to know how to figure out how to generate this result or surmount this obstacle. And I go and I do like my immediate preliminary research. And I'm limited. Like, all I am is limited capacity and bandwidth, really. And so I like spend an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, whatever, trying to figure out solutions. And then invariably it's like, I couldn't find anything today, but I've just planted the seed of training this system. And then all of a sudden, creeping into my feeds, creeping into the things I see, creeping into all these places, all of a sudden one day, you know, 3 weeks later, I'll be scrolling through some feed, and all of a sudden just served up, targeted to me, aha, this is potentially it. And then you look into it, you dig into it, and then it like trains the thing further to like start giving you more relevant stuff. So I think this is like a weird concept, especially when you've switched bicycles a couple times recently to kind of get yourself into. But it's amazing how real it is. Like,
I always have the conversation. I think it's hilarious. And to be honest, I don't actually know the answer. And maybe I sound like an idiot for saying this, but the old question of, is your phone listening to you?
Yeah.
You know, you always wonder, and I think the e-commerce is the funniest thing, because nobody ever talks about their phone listening to them in reference to anything other than, I was talking about a product and then I saw the product ad. Right?
Yeah.
And the funniest thing is, I think it's what you're describing. It's a feedback loop that's just a little delayed. So why were you talking about this product? Probably because you saw something and you interacted with something talking about the product. You know, and I always wonder if that's the case, but you know, maybe it is listening to you. But I think from an e-commerce, I want to hear from an e-commerce expert.
What do you think, Andriy?
Is it good enough? Or does it actually need to listen to you?
You know what? From like the very cut and dry way, everybody says that they're not. And then it's like, okay, cool. How much can we trust you on this self-reported evidence? Who knows? But I'm in John's bandwagon here. I think digital marketing is the only type of voluntary marketing I am like signing up for. Like, I would never go to a brand and it's like, as much as I love Patagonia, I would never go and say, send me flyers. It's like, no, I don't want physical flyers to be sent to my inbox, but I'll happily sign up for their newsletter. Or I love, I'd like people following brands on Instagram and following companies on Instagram. that is, it's not just because I know that they will sell me products, and that is why I'm following them. And like John was saying, it's like you train that algorithm voluntarily, and people are comfortable opting into that because it provides more benefit.
And every interaction, like people don't realize that every single interaction does it. And what do we talk about? Like when we're meeting with our friends, we talk about the things we see. And so it's like, oh, I was talking to somebody about this new thing. And it's like, well, why did you know about that new thing? Because you saw something for it. Somebody else was talking about it. And because you interacted with that, your little Facebook pixel has tracked you to get this ad. It's not because your phone's listening to you.
And it's demographics. It's like, I know you, and we're both, young professionals at this particular age. Surprise, surprise. If you were looking at mountain bikes, maybe I'll look at mountain bikes too. And it's,
exactly.
And
people are so predictable, right?
This is where my brain goes. Is like you're from like a digital marketing perspective. Any individual, pretty much on planet Earth, who interacts with digital technology. You're thrown into whoever knows how many different cohorts of people with different traits, of people that marketers have sliced up psychographically, demographically, behaviorally, like a number of different ways, and just realize that, hey, you fall into this category. Other people in this category started talking about mattresses on this day of this like. And then it's like, well, if you're thinking about it that way, it's not so surprising that you had a conversation with a friend and then were served an ad about that exact same niche product like
minutes
2
later.
days later and minutes later.
Exactly.
The other place my brain goes there is I think it's our relationship with data. And I think in some senses we often think about data as like a siloed or a atomistic idea. Which is weird. We think of data as like a field in a spreadsheet cell or like a name of a customer or like a this or a that. And then we talk about big data, but we don't really think about it. And then sometimes like we fail to think of like a PDF as data. But a PDF is data, a video is data, like all of these things are data points. And so it's like we also don't know too much about other people's behavior and other people's data. So I talked about, pickle flavored ice cream with my friends in a conversation, and then we all left, and 2 minutes later my friend Googled pickled flavored ice cream and bought some. The digital technology knows that we were together, like that we've got GPS and gyroscopes and pedometers and like all the data points for people to do that sleuthing.
But all it takes is that one. I remember a campaign that I worked on at the bike shop where we had a bunch of size 13 shoes. So we found everybody who had bought extra large size socks in the last however months. And we served them an email and said, hey, we have big shoes for big people. And it was pretty funny. And I'm sure they thought that was really creepy. We had an automatic one that triggered every time somebody bought shoes and didn't buy socks, to then send them an email with an offer for socks.
They probably freaked out and thought it was creepy, but let me ask you, did you sell out of your excess size 13 socks?
Oh, 2 days. In 2 days. It was crazy. Yeah. It's nuts. And that was just actually within the POS system. Yeah. So those were in-store brick and mortar customers.
But I'll be honest with you. I got big feet. It's a problem finding big shoes. So it's this is a problem. I would love to get an email like that and be like, hey, I know you're buying big socks. You probably have big feet. Here's what we've got on sale.
Well, and it feels so personal when you do that too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's a win-win. And it does give us an ability to better serve more relevant. It's just like I want to see more relevant ads because yes, I'm pro-capitalist, and I think that this is products solve a lot of problems for me in my life, and so do services. And I don't want to see irrelevant ads. I've got a lot of really dumb ads on YouTube over the last little bit, and I think it's maybe YouTube trying to sell me the premium membership, and that's probably one of the ways they're like, yo. And then it was like, why am I getting all this nonsense? And I noticed it was like I opted out of personalized ads on YouTube, and I was like, oh, okay. That's
I would rather the personalized ads than the non-personalized ads.
Yeah, I was
I've learned over the last while. I always say yes, collect my data, yes, personalize my ad.
So I wonder, for a Shopify service provider like yourself, is the need for, or not the need, but I guess let's say the desire for more personalized ads and more curated stores and collections of products. Obviously, that creates a lot of work for you in setting up stores, but is that good long term for a company like you and your clients?
Yeah, short answer is yes. Because whenever you do store design, like the key is to have your customers find the product that is available and is personalized to them as quickly as possible. So it's like, I don't want to be ever 3 clicks away from finding the shoes of my style and my size, and then just clicking checkout and making my way out.
Yeah.
So yes, it does take a lot of, and that's actually where it just needs setup and patience and being able to categorize these products and create different SKUs and make sure that a customer can filter these massive either collections of, hey, shoes by brand, by style, by size. But once that's done, you can, it's one of the better differentiating factors and one of the better sort of conversion rate tricks, essentially, on having customers just easily find the product that is perfect for them. So like personalization of specifically subcategories and sub collections of products. Those are big. Those are huge and super helpful.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, I think we're 7 minutes past the top of the hour. And so if it's all right with you, I think we'll try and transition out of things. Typically what we do is we try and do a bit of a human outro. So maybe I'll just ask you guys really quick, what's everybody up to for the weekend? Andriy?
I'm going to go to the beach on Sunday. I'm going to try to catch some sun, not think about anything other than tan lines, and be very vain about it.
Really? You could go to the nudie beach and not even have to worry about those?
Yeah. That's the goal. That's the goal.
Okay, awesome. How about you, Chris?
I got a birthday party, and gonna go on a bike ride tonight with some friends. Buddy's birthday, champagne birthday, and then maybe some golf on Sunday. I don't know.
Excellent.
That's all I got. Just trying to stay active,
Cool.
Yeah.
Finally gonna be nice out.
What about you, John? What are you up to this week?
What about you?
Yeah, I'm hoping I can get some golf in, and I think a picnic is in order tomorrow. A little bit of relaxation, shut the brain off for a minute. I think I probably have a little bit of work to do, but oftentimes I'm allowed to do a little bit of work for maybe an hour or two on Saturday morning with the understanding that, okay, it's Saturday time for the rest of the day. So I'm very much looking forward to some Saturday time. And so, I think, it was a fascinating conversation with you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love to hear more. I will say as well, I didn't mention this at the time, but there were some audience members watching the stream who definitely loved all the bike references and examples. So, hey, it kind of was like a nice little theme on this episode for sure. I didn't even intend the bike reference to link up with Chris's experience and stuff, but Sorry, Chris?
Oh, I was just going to say, I hope that was Brandon.
It was Brandon, yes. Shout out, Brandon. We will keep the bike references coming fast and furious in future episodes, and maybe we can even get Brandon involved. Why not a bike episode? Hey, we'll do a biking episode.
Oh, I'd love
to
do
it on bikes. With our phones.
Yeah. Oh,
on the road.
There
you go, in the field.
Yeah. Literally.
Wow. All right. Some big ideas over here that we're going to close off on. I would, before we end, like to give Andriy the opportunity to kind of shout out his brand for anybody who missed it. Maybe if you've got a website URL that anybody might be curious to visit or something.
Yeah, if you're looking for Shopify help, just honestly, feel free to shoot me a message either on Instagram. You can find me, Andriy Rudnyk, or check out the website, auxesys.management. And that's just auxesys.management. And then, we help with Shopify, and we try to do a good job.
Excellent. All right, everybody. So check them out. Thank you so much to our audience members one more time. We hope to have them again on the show in the future. Thank you very much to our viewers at home. And thank you so much, as always, to our frontline workers. and everybody out there working so hard to keep us safe and able to do things like this. And we will see you next week on another episode of Circle One, the future of work and leadership, every Friday at noon Central Daylight Time. Thanks, everybody.
So much.
Over and out.